Boyce Watkins from Your Black World, the Black Business School. And I want to say hello. I'm back stateside again. A lot of you guys might know that I went to Scotland and in London this week. And I want to say thank you, give a special shout out to all the people who showed up. Everybody from Black London turned out and it was sold out. It was a packed house. It was awesome. And you all also cheered when I let, my soon-to-be adopted daughter, if you want to call it that, Tay performed. She did a little dance for you guys, and everybody cheered, and everybody knows Taylor because she likes to pop into the podcast and stuff like that. And anyway, it was an honor, and I was flattered to meet you guys, and I'm extremely appreciative that you guys took the time to come out. Also, I want to say hello to Scott and Tone Loke and Nayusiri and Jones and Anthony. Love yourself first. What's going on? Lawrence Akins, Color Shines. How are you? Guess Candace. How you doing, girl? Carlos Nelson, Lamar Smith. Carlos Nelson, if I'm not mistaken, is a brilliant radio show host, a very smart brother. I have a lot of respect for you. Do me a favor, shout out your city. Let me know which city you're coming from. Shout out your city. Let me see. I see Arizona, Long Island, New York, South Carolina checking in for Jerry. What else do I see? Warner Robbins, Hell from Ohio. Mizik says, yo, what's going on? Brandon Black, how are you? Let's see. I see Cypress, Texas, Delaware, Orlando, Atlanta, San Antonio, Oakland, New Bedford, Massachusetts, Atlanta, Georgia in the house, Indianapolis, Cincinnati from Christina, Tina Jackson, how you doing? I see Vincent from Chicago. Chantel, how are you? All right, so let me jump into the topic. Hit the thumbs up button. Please hit the thumbs up button. If you're on Facebook, if you could share this, that's really important because actually I found out that Facebook, what they do to radical Negroes like me, this is how they censor the speech of people who don't fit into the mainstream. This is not me making this up. This is stuff I've been doing my research on it. One technique they use is what they call deboosting. Deboosting is when they take a Facebook Live and they do everything they can to make sure nobody else sees the Facebook Live, right? To make sure that nobody sees it, that it doesn't get out there. So they kind of suppress it. So basically, that's why I have 80-something thousand people that follow my personal page. My other page has about a little more than 250,000, and I'll go live and there'll be 20 or 30 people that get notified. Maybe a couple hundred people get notified, 20 or 30 will show up. So if you guys share, I'm hoping that if you guys share the post to your personal pages and make lots of comments and lots of remarks, that will help us to feed the algorithm what it needs in order for us to get the message out, because we're Black people and we have an important message to share, and it's very important that we share the right messages with each other. We are in an era where we have an opportunity to spread Black intelligence throughout the world. I believe also deeply in what I refer to and what we refer to in the Black Business School as Project 2070. Project 2070 is where we believe that by the year 2070, if we do what we need to do right here in this generation, our grandkids, not just our kids, but our grandkids, can be the most financially literate, financially intelligent people on the planet. Like we can become to the world what people see as the Jews doing right now, building strong communities, owning every damn thing, building businesses, making investments, having all kinds of wealth. That's something that can actually happen, but I need your help with that. So if you could just go in there and just be active in the chat, share, like, subscribe, do things. And what that does is that brings more people into the algorithm. So hit the thumbs up button. Let me jump into the topic of the conversation. And as I move forward, I want to say hello, Chester Grundy. I see you in there. I love Chester Grundy. He was one of my first original mentors, one of the baddest Black men I've ever seen. And so I want to make sure I give a shout out to him. Much respect to him. All right, so here we go. All right, so there's a professor at Harvard University, and I've actually addressed this earlier this week, but I had to come back and address it again because I feel that it's such a, it's just bullshit. I mean, that's just what it is. It has to do with this professor by the name of Roland Fryer. Now, let me just tell you, let me just be real with you guys. I'm not in alignment with Roland Fryer's politics, but this is bigger than politics. I'm not worried about whether or not he's a liberal or conservative. I don't even know the brother. I've never met him personally, but I know he works hard. Whether I like him or not, I know he's a hard worker. I know that he's highly accomplished in his field. He's one of the leading economists on the planet, one of the leading academic economists in the world, and he was so good that he actually got tenure at Harvard at the age of 30, which is very, very hard to do. In fact, I finished my PhD at 31, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't have nobody telling people. I didn't have any guidance. I didn't have any mentors. I was just going through raising hell. But still, though, the brother's very, very sharp. He knows his stuff. He knows his economic theory, etc. Now, so the thing with Roland is that he was, he was doing okay. I mean, for a while, the white guys loved him. He fit in really, really well. He got this really high paying job at Harvard. He was making about $600,000 a year. In comparison, a lot of most of the academics might make 100,000 or 200,000, something like that. But if you get up to those big numbers, that means you're doing some pretty impactful work. And he also won the John Bates Clark Medal, which goes to the best economist in the world under the age of 40. It's sort of a baby version of the Nobel Prize, and I have a lot of respect for that. I told you guys why I left academia because of the racism, but I'll say this: I have a lot of respect for those who stayed behind, because y'all better than me. My solution to racism is not to cope with it, it's not to tolerate it, it's not to figure it out, it's not to just get along, it's to get the fuck out. Like, really, I'm a big believer that Black people as a collective have to just get out of those systems, because it reduces you when you're forced to find some way to appease schizophrenic, ignorant ass people. Like, seriously, if you're getting on your knees every day trying to make an ignorant person happy, then you got to ask yourself, what am I doing here? I'm better than this. We are the original kings and queens. We created mathematics and astronomy and everything else across the board. We came to save the Europeans when they were dying from the Black plagues and everything else. So why are we on our knees trying to kiss up to people who still hold on to the ignorance of racism? And if you actually look at this specific data, racism, there are a few places that possess racism in a greater degree than Harvard University. If you look at Harvard's hiring record when it comes to African-American faculty, it is absolutely atrocious. I remember about 5-6 years ago, when Elena Kagan got nominated for the Supreme Court. Your buddy Barack Obama nominated Elena Kagan because she was from Harvard. She was a white Jewish woman from Harvard. I believe she was also a lesbian. That's just my take based on what I was reading. And so she kind of checked a lot of boxes. So Obama picked her to nominate her to the Supreme Court, and they were trying to convince a lot of influential Black people. Like, the White House actually called me, and they were trying to convince me that this lady is qualified for the Supreme Court. And I said, no, Obama needs to nominate a Black woman. We ain't never had a Black woman on the Supreme Court in the 200-something year history of this court. Who is this lady, and why the hell should I give a shit about you nominating her? And then what made it even worse was that it turned out that this lady had a horrifically racist hiring record. I mean, racism. I mean, literally, I think over 6 years, she did not give a tenure track position to one single African-American person at all. And I'm like, is this really how low we've gotten? Is this how pathetic you are? Is this how pathetic you people are in the Obama administration, that you're trying to call me a person who's got a working brain? I'm not stupid. I'm not going to go in there and get in your way when you're doing this dumb shit, but you can't do this dumb shit to me. You think I'm stupid, that I'm going to literally get out here and celebrate a lady who has a hiring record that is so racist that even David Duke and the KKK could not have done a worse job or exhibited more racism in their hiring track record, because you can't get no lower than zero. You can't hire fewer Black people than zero, right? So get out of my face with that stuff, right? So basically, Harvard has this really interesting relationship with Black people. Sure, they let in Black students. They got Black students there. I've seen the pictures posing on social media, the Black med students and the Black law students and all that. That's cool. A lot of these universities will let in Black students, but they don't hire Black professors, and they don't give them tenure. They do not commit to Black scholars. They'll let you come in to dribble basketball, throw a football, and they maybe give you a little Negro scholarship to let you go there and get a degree. But they do not want you in the decision-making space of those institutions. In fact, a lot of universities, what they do is they'll take all the Black faculty and shove them in, like they'll basically ghettoize them. They'll put them like in maybe African-American studies or Africana studies or something like that. And they'll say, okay, you Negroes just go be over there. And then when we're making the important decisions, we're going to be over here, right? So Harvard is in that category too. So let me tell you what's going on with Professor Fryer. Now, mind you, I don't know Roland Fryer at all. I've never met him, never had one conversation with him. But I'm having these conversations because I think it's worth discussing in terms of understanding how systematic racism works, and how a lot of times the greatest the greatest practicers, if you will, of systematic racism, the people who practice it the most, are the ones who pretend to be your damn friends. These damn liberals run right here talking about, oh, we're helping you fight racial injustice. No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're just a better pimp. You're just trying to pimp us in a different way. That's what you're doing. And so anyway, with Professor Fryer, he basically got caught up in some sort of Title IX Me Too situation. Apparently, according to the New York Times and some other sources I've read, he's been accused of sexual harassment. Right. I think they picked 7 instances over about a decade. Right. So 7 times in a decade, he sent maybe a text message or made a comment that was considered to be sexual harassment. Now, I'm not condoning sexual harassment at all. I'm not condoning inappropriate behavior at all. What I am challenging is the way we respond to it and the context within which it's applied. Right. It always seems like when they want to get outraged, they always want to go after the Negro. Right. When white folks really get pissed off, 9 times out of 10, they getting pissed off at a black man. I mean, this ain't nothing but lynch mob behavior. They've been doing this for 400 years. So for example, you go back 200 years, you get a black man who gets, accused of stealing a can of beans, and they say, well, stealing beans is wrong, boy. That's illegal. You shouldn't be stealing beans. And the black people will be like, yeah, he shouldn't have been stealing them beans. So the white people will be like, let's go lynch his ass. We're gonna cut his balls off in front of his mother and shove them in his mouth and and people will be like, wait a minute. We know stealing beans ain't right, but that's not how you deal with the white guys that get caught stealing the beans. And also the white guys, they get a trial, they get adequate representation. Y'all just going straight to the straight to the death penalty. And so ultimately, it's not so much a matter of whether or not the actions of the individual, of the accused, were right or wrong. That's a primary question. The really important question is whether or not the punishment fits the crime and whether or not due process is always followed in a consistent basis, no matter what the race or gender of the individual involved, right? So with Roland Fryer, apparently, and I saw a couple of the text messages. It looked like he said something to a girl, like he said something to a lady that worked in the lab. She wasn't a girl, she was a woman, and he said something like, it's too bad you're not coming in late, because if you were here late, I might want to choke you or bite you or both, or something like that. He said something like that, and he said it was a joke, and I think it's inappropriate. I personally believe if you're a black man and you want to be safe, you don't say things like that. But at the same time, they didn't give any context to that. For all we know, they could have been fucking, like, seriously. For all we know, they could have been literally having sex. They could have been, they could have had a relationship, and maybe that's how they communicated. We don't know that because they won't tell us that. And that's the other thing. They sort of, with a lot of these Title IX investigations that happen on college campuses and in other places, they'll sort of operate with a veil of secrecy. They'll get these secret tribunals that'll get together and put people under investigation. And what happens is when you get put under investigation, you're kind of done. You've been accused. You're a black man who's been accused. You're done. Now Roland Fryer will never have a chance to win the Nobel Prize. He was on the fast track to be a strong Nobel candidate. He won't win the Nobel Prize now because now, in the minds of many people, he's a sexual predator. But he's not a sexual predator. He is a guy who sent text messages that were out of line and inappropriate. And so, so my thought was, why did Harvard overreact the way that they did? Let me tell you what they did to the brother. They took away his lab. He had this lab that he was running that was doing, pretty heavy work, in his field, very respected, within economics. He had black students and white students and students of all backgrounds working with him. And they took the lab away. They banned him from campus for 2 years. And when he comes back, there are lots of places where he's not allowed to even teach. They said, you cannot teach these kinds of students. You are not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to do that. So in a way, they kind of put him on almost like a sex offender registry for academics. Like, because you've been stigmatized in this way, you're not a regular faculty member anymore. You're now you've got a scarlet letter on your forehead, which is going to make it difficult for him to move forward and do anything meaningful within the field of economics. So what's interesting as well is that and you can go read up on it, just go look up Roland Fryer. You can read all about the story. What's fascinating too is when I was reading through all the different articles, he has supporters. He has people that vouch for him. He has people that have said, no, he's a great guy. I've worked with him for a while. He's done good work. The work we were doing was excellent. Now Harvard's killing all of that because of a couple of accusations that people have made. And I find it fascinating that, that people will always listen to those who accuse a black man of wrongdoing, but they don't listen to the people who support him, right? It's almost like you need 100 supporters for every one accuser when you're a black man. Because my thought is, look, if you're listening to people, if you're really out seeking truth and you're looking for accurate information, why not listen to the supporters as much as you listen to the accusers? Why not look into the backgrounds of the accusers to determine if there's a motive, if there's some motive for them wanting to get rid of him? Did he fire them? Did he tell them that you ain't doing a good job, get the hell out? Because that happens. That happens, and I know this. I know this because I run a company, and I've had times where I told somebody, get the fuck out, just go. You're terrible. You don't need to work here anymore, and I'm very upset with you. So I need you to just leave. And next thing you know, they're like, Boyce is a bad person. Boyce is this and Boyce is that. And I'm like, yeah, you saying all that shit because I pretty much put you on blast for not doing your damn job. Now you want to go come back and say these things that are true, and because you know that because I'm a black man, people are just going to believe it without actually investigating to find out the truth. So I think that this case, it triggered me a little bit because I think it's time that we start switching the narrative and calling out the nonsense. Look, I'm not talking about a world where we validate anybody who's engaged in inappropriate behavior or who's engaged in sexual assault or extreme harassment or anything like that. I'm not saying that at all. We know most of us don't support that. If you don't support sexual assault or harassment, just say I don't support that. Just say that. Let's make that clear. So before people run around saying that we're trying to say it's okay to just do anything to anybody, we're not trying to say that at all. But what we need to look for is fairness. Because here's the thing. Look, Harvard loves to take down black professors. Just 2-3 months ago, there was a black couple in the law school. They were the first black deans of, I guess they have deans of these houses. I don't know if it's like those like Ivy League schools. They're like Harry Potter episodes or something. Like they have the dean of the house, right? Other campuses are like, okay, you got the dorm director. At Harvard, it's like you're the dean of dorm Wilson, like whatever, man, get out of here with that. But anyway, so they were the deans of the dorms or something, and they both got removed from their post because as lawyers they were actually working on the Harvey Weinstein case. So what happened then was the feminists got upset, they started protesting, and next thing you know, they too were under investigation, they too were being scrutinized. And that's how they do, that's what they're doing, that's the new racism. It's to put you under investigation. I've seen it happen. It happens on people's jobs. It happens all the time in academia. In fact, I've got colleagues right now going through that. I know a couple of professors who are literally the only black professors on their entire campus, and their department was under investigation, where literally they went through everything that they were doing with a fine-tooth comb, looking for any reason to penalize them, any reason to punish them. So what you then do is you're taking the black person, you're putting the spotlight on them, you're doing the racial profiling, and you're setting a standard here where if the standard's here and you're here, then you failed. Then something's wrong with you. You're flawed. Whereas you got white guys over here sitting up under the radar. They haven't even met this standard, and nobody's giving them any scrutiny. So what I love about Professor Fryer, here's where I'm gonna give him his props. He asked this question very openly. I get a sense that he's not going to take this sitting down. I get a sense he's going to file some lawsuits or he's going to start talking, because one question he asked that I thought was great, because he's not a stupid man, very smart man. He said, I would like to know if you plan to go through all the emails of all the Harvard faculty over the last 20 years to see if they have violated any of the university regulations within those emails. I said, there you go. That's what you do. When they put that spotlight on you, you turn that motherfucker right back on them. You flip it around. That's what, in fact, that's what I did when I was at Syracuse. When I was at Syracuse University, a lot of you guys know I had a big fight with them, and I'm not easy to work with anyway. So I if I were them, I wouldn't want me around either. But I remember they were trying to go through this whole like, well, you don't quite meet our standard, and this and this. And I said, okay, let's assume I don't meet the standard, because I don't really think you're even qualified to evaluate me, because you've never hired a black person in my position. You've never seen a qualified black person in your life. In fact, you've told me that you scoured the earth high and low, and you can't find a single black person who's qualified to do a job that hundreds of white men have already done. So that right there tells me that you're racist. That tells me that you're biased. That tells me that something's wrong with you, not me, something wrong with you, right? And that's proof. I can prove that. So what I then said was, I said, okay, let's assume I'm not qualified. Now what I want you to do is I want you to go look at their record. When the reporter called me and he's like, well, Dr. Watkins, they're saying that you didn't do this and you're not that and you're blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you know what? I'm tired of being judged by white people. It ain't happening no more, partner. That conversation doesn't happen in my house, because I've seen too many black people go crazy trying to meet an illusory false fake, horrible standard, right? A standard that doesn't even really exist, right? So instead of doing this, I want you to assume I'm not qualified. I want you to assume that I don't want any of the carrots or sticks that they're offering me. I don't get any additional self-esteem by being on the faculty of Syracuse. So here's what I want you to do now. I want you to go look at their record, and I want you to scrutinize them the way you scrutinize me. So I want you to go back and I want you to look at the last 100 years, and I want you to count how many departments on this campus have never hired a black person, have never promoted a black person. How many black faculty do they have right now that actually have tenure, that have actually been promoted? And I want you to look at the pay discrepancies between the African-American faculty and everybody else. I want you to really analyze all of that, and then let's talk, because we can talk about that shit all day, because we got receipts on that. So my point is to say that don't let them make you self-conscious. You make them self-conscious. You make them defend themselves. When people get you on the defensive, that's when they've already won. Because because you can't score points on defense. You can't score points on defense. I learned this actually, you guys may or may not know this about me. I probably told if you really know me really well, you'll know this. But if you don't know me that way, if you don't know me really, really well, you won't know this. But actually, I love the game of poker. And I don't like to gamble. Gambling is not a good habit to have, but I like to play just for sport. And I've won some big poker tournaments. Poker is a fun game because it's a game of psychology, math, and strategy, right? So it's great. It fits my brain perfectly because I'm a strategist, because I'm a mathematician, and also I know mathematics, and also I know psychology, right? And so one thing about poker is they teach you very early is that if you want to defeat somebody, you're better off when you're the aggressor than you are when you're on the defensive. When you're on the defensive, you're usually not going to win. So what I would say to you as black people is that you got to stop being on the defensive. Stop letting them trigger you so easily. Stop letting them make you think that there was a reason why you got fired and the white people didn't, because you were late 2 days in a row. How many days was he late? Go look at his record. Let's go see what he did. Let's compare what I did to what he did. And if I did worse than everybody else, then we can talk. But if I can point out 10 white guys that got the promotion, even though they didn't meet my standard, then that means that something's biased about this situation. So they'll talk all day about, sexual harassment or gender-based harassment. But what they do not talk about at Harvard is racial harassment. Racial harassment is rampant, and a lot of you go through it. Tell me if you ever go through this on your job. If you feel harassed as a black person, you feel you're overly scrutinized. If you feel like you're likely to get reported. I remember racial harassment started. White supremacist systems tend to be very big on racial harassment. Whether you're talking about the criminal justice system, the economic system, if you're talking about the educational system, etc. The racial harassment, I remember as a kid started when I was, I remember being in third grade. And I didn't understand, why my white teacher would always put me in detention for little shit. Like it was like, damn, like I didn't do nothing. Like, so eventually what happens is that when you keep getting punished, when you didn't do anything wrong and you've done your best to try to meet a standard that you really thought was a fair standard, and you don't meet it, it starts to affect you. It starts making you crazy. It starts pissing you off. So I don't know if you guys go through that. I would be willing to bet you. Let's do a little test. How many of you feel that you've ever had a job where you felt racially harassed, where you felt that because you were black, you got treated different, you got scrutinized in a different way, they were poking at you over little shit, just microaggression, constantly fucking with you every single day to the point where it was just making you angry to go to work? Has anybody gone through that? We're gonna start the Me Three movement right now, right? Like you got Me Too movement where they talking about sexual harassment, where you send a text to a white woman that makes her uncomfortable, which is a very vague statement, right? The next thing you know, she can ruin your whole career. But nobody talks about racial harassment, right? Exactly. Look at that. Look at all so many of you, have experienced this, and there's no conversation about this. So I'm gonna say, I don't know Roland Fryer, and I don't know if I'm ever going to talk to him. Maybe he'll see this video, but I'm going to encourage him. I'm going to encourage him. I don't know what kind of black man he is. I don't know what he cares about, but I'm going to encourage him to be a suicide bomber. And what I mean by that is, you've achieved all this power, you've achieved all this success. You've made some money. You're good. You'll never be homeless. You've got all the prestige you need. You're a tenured Harvard professor and all this other stuff. Sure, you won't get the Nobel Prize, but fuck that. That's some shit white people made up anyway. Who gives a damn? Go for something. Go for a black prize. Like let's create a black version of the Nobel Prize. If that'll make you feel better. Awards and trinkets make you feel better, then that's fine. But we shouldn't. need our oppressors to give us our self-esteem. So if I were talking to him, I would say, man, you know, let's go ahead and accept the fact that you got yours. You succeeded. Now let's think about future generations. Go in there like a suicide bomber and blow the whole building up. That means I want you to tell every story, make every argument, file every lawsuit, go hard on their asses, put them on the defensive. And what's going to happen is that you're going to see them changing their behavior to make things easier for the next person of color that comes through your position. I'll give you an example. When I was at Syracuse, I kind of did that. I said, I think I'm gonna go in suicide bomber mode, because by that time I decided I don't want to be in this damn place. I can't deal with these crazy people. I'm gonna go be an entrepreneur. If a white man can find a way to pay his own bills without a job, I can do that too. And I remember that when it was time for them to evaluate me to decide if I'd get tenure, I was like, no, you're not qualified. I literally, first thing I wrote was, you're not qualified to evaluate me. It probably sounded arrogant as shit. I probably sounded like the most uppity Negro they'd ever met. And I probably am an uppity Negro because my self-esteem was fully intact. There was nothing that they could give me that would make me feel better about myself, because I already knew that the best thing in the world I could ever be is a black man. I already knew I was an educated black man. I already knew I was a strong black man. I already knew that I was a hardworking black man. I already know that I'm good for my family. I already know that I'm committed to my community. So you, as my oppressor, really don't have any validation or right to even tell me whether or not I'm successful or not. I don't need that from you. In fact, that's almost a curse. When too many I'm serious. When you live in a racist country, when your oppressor is constantly telling you that you're successful and congratulating you and applauding you, that's when you need to look out, because that means something might be wrong with you. That means you might be supporting the system, because systems don't reward people who don't support the system. They reward people who support the system, who fit into the system, right? So I remember I just wrote all my little papers up, for my tenure application, and it was basically like a manifesto. It was like, actually, when I looked at the track record of Syracuse University in the last 100 years, you actually have never given a promotion to any black person in my position. So I don't think I'm going to be the first. But let me tell you about the racial bias in this institution and why you guys aren't qualified to even evaluate any black scholar, right? And of course, I didn't get the promotion, and it was a big deal because it was all over the media, because by that time I was a pretty famous professor. So they were kind of like being asked, like, why is this successful scholar? You claim you're looking for these black people to hire, but this successful scholar, you're saying he's not good enough, when really it sounds like he's just too radical. And I had a lawsuit on him. I could have easily filed a lawsuit, because little things would happen, like they would encourage us to go out into the public to get media attention, but they didn't know that I was actually going to go talk about my people. I was actually going to talk about racial injustice and things like that, in addition to economics. And so what would happen is I would be on CNN 2 or 3 times that week, and they wouldn't mention it at all. But there'd be some other white guy down the hall who would be in the local newspaper, and they would put it all over the website like it was a big deal. And I was like, that's interesting. So he's in the local newspaper, and y'all acting like that's a big deal. But I was on CNN 3 times this week. Like, doesn't that count for something? And so it's like little things like that they do. Those are those little microaggressions that you go through, and those things will drive you crazy. And so I believe that the ultimate solution for black people is to find a way to get out. But if you can't get out, then I would say go ahead and fight the good fight, whatever that means for you. Just don't let those people drive you crazy, and don't let them affect your self-esteem. Get your self-esteem from somewhere else. Don't get it from your oppressor, because they'll only, even when they give it to you, they'll always threaten to take it away from you. So you look at this guy here, Roland Fryer at Harvard. They gave him all kinds of accolades. They gave him all kinds of money, all kinds of status, but they yanked that shit right away. As soon as he got out of line, they took it all away. So did you really own anything if they can take it all away from you? No, you don't own anything. That none of that's yours. So now I'm wondering, what are you going to do now? Where do you go now? So I remember I had a chairman named Peter Kovios, who's a great guy. I got to check in on him. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy. He happened to be a white man, but I really liked him. And one thing he told me was, he said, actually, I've been hearing the conversations around campus about your tenure case. And he said that because they wanted to not give you the promotion, that's why they promoted the other 2 black people that were going up for that job. And he basically said that they gave it to them because they didn't want to look like racist, because you made them so defensive. And I said, good. I said, because I don't need this job. I don't want this job. I got bigger plans for myself. I'm going to go try to change the world and fuck this school. But these other people, I guess, if they need the job, then I want them to get the job. The other thing that they did the next year was they hired more black administrators than they'd ever hired before. Like they hired tons of black people the next year because they didn't want that scrutiny of being called racist. So I think that when somebody tries to molest you in the dark, I think you should scream at the top of your lungs and let everybody know, and don't let them intimidate you into silence, because what happens is they take us down one by one. And because people are afraid of being blackballed or whatever, or being stigmatized, they don't talk, they don't say anything. So they're literally going through victimizing one black person after another, and nobody knows about it because nobody will talk about it in public. Well, I would encourage Roland Fryer to talk about it in public. I would say, what do you have to lose? What more can they, what more can they take away from you? What more can they give you? They should, that you got all the accolades you can get in your profession except the Nobel Prize. Go ahead and be honest. Just be honest. That's it. I would just tell them to be honest. That's it. So anyway, that those are my thoughts. And I don't know if he's going to even care what I have to say about this. I don't. It doesn't matter. I don't even know the guy. I'm not even reaching out to him to come into the podcast. So if he wants to come in, I'd bring him on. But truth be told, I'm not real big on trying to help black people get jobs at Harvard, because as far as I'm concerned, black people should be creating our own Harvard universities anyway. I don't really enjoy the idea that we spend our lives working hard to build enough wealth so we can give that wealth away to white people so we can go to their schools. I'm not a fan of that. I'm just not. I think that just really speaks to the depth of the trap that we're stuck in as black people in America. And I think that the only solution for us is to build our own, own our own, think long term, and connect with the diaspora. Because over across in Africa, you got a whole continent that filled with a billion people that look like you, that want to build with you, and so in my mind, I think this is the time for us to really start thinking hard about building our own systems. And that's it. So I'm not, but again, I probably sound like a cynic. So I'm not trying to discredit anybody who does that thing, but I'm just telling you, I don't think racism is something that you should have to tolerate. It's beneath you. You're better than that. You are a special people, and you deserve to be treated with the dignity that God gave you when you were born. And if these people can't do it, then fuck them. Excuse my French. I don't mean to cuss. I'm sorry. All right. So anyway, I'm going to go. Just a reminder, speaking of building our own, you guys know we have financial workbooks for children that we created. So if you have a child, we have all grade levels covered. We use black experts to help us get this done. And it took us 2 years to get this done. We did it. The first version wasn't good enough, but we redid it, and we love it. And so if you want to teach your kids about, wealth and everything else, we actually have these great books, and they're actually on sale. The bundle packs are 50% off right now for this weekend only. So you can go to financialworkbooks.com if you'd like to take a look. That's financialworkbooks.com. And also, please hit the thumbs up button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, and I hope that my words are taken in the context within which they're intended. I think that what's happening with this brother is one of those things where, when they say that we're taking everything away from you because you engaged in inappropriate behavior, so-called inappropriate behavior is okay. I am going to say, though, it's not like he beat somebody up or raped somebody. He maybe sent a text message that he shouldn't have sent, and perhaps a better punishment would be one that doesn't involve taking everything that he's worked the last 10 years to accomplish. That's just what I don't see. I don't think the punishment fits the crime, and I think that's really what it is. I think that this whole idea that if I send a white woman a text and say, "Hey girl, I'd like to get, I'd love to see if we can get in the bed together," why can't somebody just come talk to me and say, "Hey, you can't do this. You can't send text messages like that. If you do it again, you'll be in big trouble." Why does it have to always be the fucking death penalty for somebody's career because because he was being a man and told a woman that he thought she was attractive? Seriously. I mean, I'm not saying this okay. I'm just saying everything ain't rape, like that. And that's what the white female wants everybody to do. They're literally looking at her and thinking that she looks good in her dress, like staring too long. You stared 3 seconds instead of 2 seconds, and it made her uncomfortable. So now you're under investigation and you can lose everything you have. That's absolutely ridiculous. That's there's a brother that I actually helped with his case at his university, where there was a white female in his class who reported anonymously that he made her feel uncomfortable. There was no specifics given. She'd never been alone with him. They'd never had any personal interaction. She just said she was uncomfortable with something he said in class. And it was like, he's like, what am I supposed to do with this? That's the thing that I think is insane to me. And that's what they're doing to black people all over this country. And so, anyway, I just thought I would bring it up. I'm just trying to use my platform to help the brother out a little bit because I think he deserves support. Not that I know him or that I think he's completely innocent. For all I know, he could be a big asshole. I don't know. All I know is that the punishment doesn't fit the crime, and it's a problem. And it happens to so many people that I think it's worth talking about. All right, so I'm out of here, guys. Take care. Have a good day. And if you know of a similar story, go ahead and tell your story. This is the Me Too movement for black people. So, if you've experienced racial harassment or you've gone through something like that, go ahead and mention your story. Feel free to mention names. White women are mentioning names and calling people out from 30 years ago. Well, black people should be doing the same thing too, because we got actual receipts. We've gone through 10 times worse, so we should do 10 times more talking. So don't keep your story to yourself. Tell the world what you went through, and we'll all be listening. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Have a good day. I'll see you soon. Hit the thumbs up button. Talk to you later. Peace.